Hashem that we're able to learn every day. We discuss about learning. We should have the basic English immediately. Okay. We're holding by Rabbi Yehuda Aimer on Daf Membav on 46. Yeah. We learned in the Mishnah that if someone divorces his wife because there were rumors about her that she was promiscuous or because she took vows, he doesn't want a woman that has these vows on her that she can't do this, she can't do that, she keeps making these vows. And then he decides that he wants to remarry her. So we say that he's not allowed to remarry her. Actually, at the time that he was getting divorced, they said you should know that you won't be able to remarry her. Okay. Now, Rabbi Yehuda said it's not so simple. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. If it was a vow that the public knows about, then she can't get remarried. If it was a vow that the public doesn't know about, then she can get remarried. Gemara now says, Rabbi Yehuda, if it's a vow that the public knows about, then he's not allowed to remarry her. She can marry someone else. He can't go back and remarry. Now, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't have the same concern that the sages had in the Mishnah. The sages in the Mishnah said that we're afraid that maybe she's going to marry another man after the divorce. The husband's going to come along and say, I looked into the rumors, I looked into those vows. The rumors weren't true. The vows I could annul somehow. And so therefore, the get was really nullified. And now that she's remarried, all the children become mamzerim. She's really still married to the first husband. That was called kilkula. He may ruin her situation. What's the word that they use over there? May ruin her situation. Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about that. Rabbi Yehuda has a different concern. Rabbi Yehuda says that it depends how serious, what type of vow she's taking. If she's a real vower, oath taker, so then she makes oaths in public, vows in public. So then we have to teach her that she shouldn't be doing this. So we say you're never going to be able to get married again. But you're never going to be able to remarry him. Okay. Depends if it was done in public or not. That's the severe oath taker. I'm Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, my time of the Rabbi Yehuda. Where does Rabbi Yehuda get this from? That if it's a vow that's made in public, that it can't be annulled. And this is the serious type. Because it says in the pasuk, this is talking about the Givainim. They show up telling Yeshua that they come from this faraway place. They're wearing these dirty clothing and these old skins of animals, for the flasks for water. These old things, they come from a long journey. Meanwhile, they were really from around the corner. It was all false. Yeah. So, but Yeshua had already promised them, sworn to them, that he's not going to harm them.
Was there any conversion there?
Yeah. Well, he didn't harm them, he didn't hit them. He nishbalem either because the princes of the tribes had sworn to them. So you see, it was an oath that was made in public. The princes of the tribes made this oath. It was done in public. You can't annul an oath like that. And that's why we're saying that if the public knows about it, it can't be annulled. So the Rabbanon say that you can annul an oath like that.
Wow.
It says why? Was there such an oath? Was there an oath at all? The whole thing was a false premise. There was no oath there at all. So why didn't they annul it? Why didn't they kill them? Because it would have been a chil Hashem. That these people came, people wouldn't have known all those details. They would have said, oh, they just killed them. Kama Rabim. So what does it mean? Rabbi Yehuda says that if Yadu by Rabim, if the public knows about it, so then it can't be annulled. Nachman Amar Gimel. Nachman says 3 people is already a Rabbim. So 3 is a crowd. 2 is company, 3 is a crowd. So
what would have been a chil Hashem? They lied. They made a false, didn't the Jews made a vow? Because they
They
made,
hold us to a higher standard. And they would have said that we just violated the oath. That they lied. They lied. What happened later on was when Shaul's children, when there was a plague, they said, why is the plague? And they said because they did something to the Gibeonite. They were part of one of the 7 nations that were supposed to be wiped out. Well, it was after I, correct. Well, so Kamar Rabbim, Kamar Asar, says 10 people is considered the public. Rav Nachman Amar Gimel, Rav Nachman says 3. Yamim Beis Rabbim is Gimel. He quotes a verse that's talking about a zava, that it says if she has a flow that goes for 3 days, which we learned from the word Rabbim. Yamim Rabbim, Yamim is 2, Rabbim means 3. So then she becomes a zava gedola. So we see Rabbim means 3. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Asara, Rabbi Yitzchak says it means 10, the Eda, because of the word Eda. It says Nisiyei HaEda, the princes of the tribes had sworn. We have another source where Eda by the Meraglim, that Eda congregation is referring to 10 because there were 10 spies there that spoke bad. So we know that Eda means 10. Okay, Reb Meir Reimer, Reb Meir, he has a different view. Reb Meir's view in the Mishnah was that the guy's coming along and claiming, the husband's claiming that had I had known that I would have been able to annul the vow, I never would have divorced you. So when can he make that claim? Had I had known. The mayor says he can make that claim not on a vow that a husband can annul. A vow that a husband can annul, that's a vow of Pini Nefesh, when she does something that's afflicting herself or a matter that's between them. Reb Meir says everyone knows that the husband can annul that immediately. He can't show up now and say, had I known that I could have annulled that, then I never would have divorced you. What type of vow is what he did not know, and he claims that had I had known, that would have been a vow that he would have had to go into a chacham. She says, I'm never going to eat, I don't know, spinach or something.
they would have to go to a chacham if she made that enter before they were married.
Yeah. She would have, and had he had known that she could annul that vow, that he could have that vow annulled through a chacham, he never would have divorced her. And now, being that now he does know that, and he did divorce her, so really the whole divorce is really void. And she's
for sure has to go to a chacham.
He has to go to a chacham for marriage counseling, but she has to go to a chacham to annul the vow. She took the vow. She was taking vows. The chachams. The husband says, I don't know what the chacham, I don't know anything about the chachamim. All I know is I don't like vows. You're out. He divorced her. A few weeks later, he said, where's your wife? He said, I divorced her. She took vows. Why didn't you go to a chacham? A chacham, I didn't realize I could do that. So he's going to annul the whole divorce, which would create a problem for her. Well, the mayor says that any vow that you have to go to a chacham for, so then that's the vow that we don't allow them to get remarried. But if you don't need a chacham, then we do allow you to get remarried, because you can never claim to me that had I had known. Because what do you mean had I had known? Of course you know you can annul a vow like that. Husbands annul those types of vows. Rabbi Elazar was a friend of Reb Meir. Rabbi Elazar comes in and tells Reb Meir it's exactly the opposite. He says the reason why we don't allow them to get remarried by a vow that you need a chacham is because of the vow when you don't need a chacham. So we'll have to explain this now. Tanya was taught in a brisa. Rabbi Elazar Eimer layasru sarich. They only forbade the returning of the husband to wife when you require a chacham to annul the vow, only because of the vows that he does not need the chacham. which that we do not want him to go back. Gemara has to explain. But my committee, what in the world is going on over here? Seems exactly the opposite. Rameir's svara is more logical. He didn't know about that the chacham that you can annul vows. I didn't know you could do that.
We just read there was
And so therefore,
common that everyone
the husband, we know that the husband can annul the vow that's a matter between them. But those other vows that are not a matter between husband and wife, he didn't know that you can get rid of them. So, but my committee, what's the machlek? Rameir Savar, Rameir holds, right? So Adam Shetis Basish, they be Besdin, that a person does not mind. Here it says he wants, but it doesn't mean he wants. It means he doesn't mind if his wife would have gone in front of a court, in front of a chacham, and discussed her vow. He didn't mind. He doesn't mind that. So he says, had I had known that we could get rid of the vow by going to the chacham and discussing it, and even though it's going to be possibly in public in front of a bezdin, he doesn't mind that. He said, had I had known that you could get rid of a vow like that, I never would have divorced you. Okay, so which type of vow would he claim this? That type of vow. Yes, you got to comment on the Dr. Stein's outfit. Wait, don't sit down.
Oh,
He came in to look like the professor with beige pants. All of a sudden, he's wearing black
You're the
pants.
statue over there.
he came in to show off. That's a shirt that his daughter gave him. He's showing off his
It's
daughter
not
loves
good,
him.
it's the pants that are different. No jeans today.
I actually have a question, Rabbi Smith. So it seems like this is an exception to what we learned about a petak as a basis for annulling a vow. All right. That's my first question. The second, it seems like there are always going to be a minimum of 3 people who know about it because there were 2 people on a get.
Well,
Right.
no, there could be a yachid mumcha. An individual expert can annul a vow without 3 people there. Yachid mumcha can annul a vow, or 3 people.
I'm saying there are always going to be 3 who know about it. This whole discussion, there are always going to be 3 who know about it. And I don't know why we use 3, because if we learned elsewhere that 2, for example, if 2 people sign a shtar chayiv, it has a voice in the community.
The 3 was a discussion, 3 people by the get. That was a discussion by a shliach. When the shliach brings a get, he has to say in front of 3 people, B'nai Nechtav. That's by the shliach.
Yeah, but I'm saying there are always going to be 3 people at least who know about this whole discussion about it. How many people may know about it just seems superfluous.
Yeah, but by the get, they don't have to know about all the details of the vow. He just comes in, he says, that's it, I've had it. And they write the get. The vow, he has to discuss, well, I don't like this and that, and he has to go through the whole, it's like going to the doctor and does and discussing, the therapist, going to the therapist. So Reb Meir says the person doesn't mind if his wife goes to the therapist to annul the vow, the chacham. And Rabbi Lazar Savar, ain't other rights to shit this process the best. And Rabbi Lazar has his opposite opinion. He says the person does not want his wife to go to the chacham. Now, what comes out now, according to Rabbi Lazar, is you're showing up now after the divorce, and you're telling me that had I had known, you would have sent her to a chacham. You never would have sent her to a chacham. No one wants their wife to go to the chacham. That's what Rabbi Lazar. That's what Rabbi Lazar is saying. That's why he's allowed to get, according to Rabbi Lazar, he really should be allowed to get remarried because he can never mess up his wife by claiming that had I had known, I would have never divorced her. Because even if you did know, you would have divorced her anyway. Because you wouldn't have wanted her, you would have rather get divorced than she should go to the chacham. So according to Rabbi Lazar, which vows are problematic? The vows that he could have annulled himself. He did not, there's really a hidden machlekes here between Rabbi Lazar and Reb Meir. A vow that the husband can annul does the chacham know? The vow that the husband can annul on his own, because those are vows that are between each other, between the husband and wife. Does the husband know? Does everyone know that the husband can annul that? According to Reb Meir, everyone knows that. You can't show up later saying, "Oh, had I had known that I could have annulled the vow like that, I never would have divorced her." No, we say you knew that. That was part of the. They told it to you at the chuppah. Remember, we said when a girl gets married, they tell annul all the vows or whatever before she gets in between the betrothal and the husband and the father, annul all her vows. No. According to Rabbi Lazar, the husband does not know that, and so therefore he could show up later saying, "I didn't know that I could have annulled those vows. She made a vow that we're never going to have relations or something, so I divorced her." So he shows up later. They say, "Oh, I could annul that. Oh, I didn't realize. I never would have divorced her." Right? It was a matter between them. It's clearly a vow that he could annul.
So that's not a valid reason.
So because we have a concern that he may annul the whole divorce because it was misinformation, so then it's going to end up messing up her new marriage that she's already in with, and she has children, and we're going to claim that she's really a married woman. So Rabbi Lazar says that the vow that requires the chacham is just the gzeira because of the vow that doesn't require the chacham. It's exactly the opposite of the thing.
Is the reason we don't do that nowadays because the time getting married?
They're older.
No, not just the older, but it's like in Kippur, using the Kippur.
Oh, no, I think it's because they're older. It's because they're older. What happened with they only could annul a vow when they're 12, in between 12 and 12 and a half, together, the father and the husband. Okay, next Gemara, it says, Amar Rabbi Yesi Bar Yehuda, Rabbi Yesi Bar Yehuda says, Ma'aseh b'Tzeidan. There was a story in this place, Tzeidan, where someone tells to his wife, taking a vow, it's forbidden to me like a karban, kainam, if I don't divorce you. So he divorced her. And then he decides to remarry her. So he remarries her. And all that was fine. The sages allowed it. But it says, "My Tana the Katani Maisa." What did you mention that caused us to bring up the story about this Maisa? We weren't talking about husbands taking vows. We were talking about women taking vows. Gemara says, actually, we're missing a little phrase in there. You have to add that in so that the story makes sense. When do we say that they can't get remarried? That's only if she took the vow. But if he took the vow, he's allowed to remarry her. Rabbi Yehuda comes along and says, you have a story in Seidan. It's forbidden to me like a karban if I don't divorce you. The Gershay divorced her. The sages allowed him to get remarried and play Tikkun Olam for the betterment of the world. We're going to discuss the betterment of the world in a second, but first let's discuss this vow. My kainim. What did he say? It's going to be forbidden to me like a karban, on top of above him at base. Amar Rav Huna says, all the fruits of the world should be forbidden to me if I don't divorce you. Whoa. That means what vow is he taking that something should be forbidden as a karban? Not his wife is forbidden as a karban. Fruits of the world are going to be forbidden to me as a karban if I don't divorce you, and therefore, like he imposed this vow on himself that required him to divorce his wife, so he divorced her. And then the Gemara says, they allowed him to get remarried. Pshita, of course he can get me remarried. What's the problem over here? It's not like he's going to claim that maybe the divorce was invalid. Maybe we should make a decree like Reb Nassan said. Reb Nassan was very against vows. It says the Tanya, it was taught in a Brayso, Reb Nassan, anyone that takes a vow, it's as if they built this private altar for an idol. And then when you go and fulfill the vow, when you keep the vow, Reb Nassan wants you to annul it. If you go and fulfill it, kilu hikr v'la karban, as if you brought a sacrifice on the altar that you set up for the idol. Now, if that's the case, so this guy is really messing up one after another. He takes a vow and then he even fulfills the vow. He divorced his wife. Maybe we should say, okay, that's it. You can't remarry her. We say no. Kamash Malan, he can. They take an oilam because of the betterment of the world. We say that he's allowed to get remarried. My take an oilam. What are you talking about? The betterment of the world of here? What is this? Betterment of the world is that it's usually something we're afraid that something negative is going to come out of this. What does it have to do with us? Amrav Sheshas Aresha. Shesha says no. That was just the concluding phrase, going back on the beginning of the Mishnah, where we had a concern that if a man divorces his wife because she had vows, and then he claims that, oh, I didn't realize I could have annulled those vows or had them annulled. So then we're going to end up saying that the whole divorce is invalid. If that's the case, then it's because it could mess up her life. Like she was already remarried, and he's saying that the whole divorce wasn't a real divorce. That's a tikkun olam.
I always thought when they used the term tikkun, it was like the woman was there to attack the man, and the conservatives use this a lot.
Tikkun olam.
Tikkun olam, right? Like that. So, and that's a positive thing. So why do we have to look at that and say, if we could avoid this whole divorce and this and that, so he and her can live together in peace and harmony, that's what it was all set out to be.
That's a good chat. Good chat. The Gemara doesn't offer it though, but it's a good chat. Yeah, Dr. Stein saying they tikkun olam so that they should be able to have a nice marriage. Tikkun olam, like the modern usage of the word. That's I guess the Gemara didn't have that usage of the word. Tikkun olam was to avoid catastrophe.
PC.
TC, be conservative. Yeah.
Why is Gittin Daf like mostly a conservative?
We just use it.
What usually happens is the Orthodox and the very Orthodox are very involved in halacha. So like the rituals and this and that, and the conservative that aren't like the emphasis is not on the halacha.
Oh, okay. So
they have other things that they emphasize. They emphasize tikkun olam. Really? I didn't know that. Okay. Derech Eretz, right?
Don't knock them.
I'm not knocking.
I'm not saying don't knock until you try them. Just don't knock them.
Okay.
Tell Dr. Stein the timer ran on him.
We said the timer went off.
Ravina says Leila Masefer. Actually, we are talking about the Sefer, like Dr. Stein wanted to say. However, it's exactly the opposite. And what it means to say is Ein Bazumi Pnei Tikkun Olam. This does not have the concern of Tikkun Olam, that we should forbid them from ever getting remarried, and in order to resolve some catastrophe. That doesn't prevent the catastrophe. That doesn't apply over here. Okay. But Pnei Tikkun Olam means because there's no Tikkun Olam. No issue. Okay, next Mishnah. Similar concept. The person divorces his wife because she didn't have the female features. She was an islandess. Islandess is an isle with the male ram. She had how do they translate it over there? They just say islandess probably. No, an islandess. Sexually underdeveloped woman. So he divorced her because she's not going to be able to have children. She's underdeveloped. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer layachzer. Rabbi Yehuda says he's not allowed to take her back later. Could be she, with this diet or that diet, she ends up being able to have children. The Chum say you can take her back. Now, what's the concern over here? The Gemara is going to discuss that the names here do not match perfectly with the names of our last Mishnah, because Rabbi Yehuda of the last Mishnah that was not concerned about kilkel, was not concerned about some catastrophe happening after the divorce. The guy says that the divorce was really he undermines the whole divorce. He was not concerned about that. Over here, Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about undermining the whole divorce. If we when the guy comes to get divorced, we tell him that if we find out no matter what, even if you find out that she's not an islandess, you still can never remarry her. Because we don't want you to undermine the divorce later. And the Chachamim say,
Well, he's gonna find out she's not an islandess because she had children.
Because she had children. Right.
That's really like.
That's right. And then he's going to say, had I had known, I never would have divorced her. So then, but really the children are going to end up becoming Mamzerim because he would be undermining the divorce. She's a married woman. The new husband was all in sin. The Chachamim say we don't have a concern about this. We don't have a concern about Kilkel, him undermining the divorce. Let's say she does get married and she does have children, and then she comes back to her first husband. See, when the first marriage, when he divorced her, he says, I'm not giving her a ksuba. This whole marriage was a mistake. She's an islandess. I didn't know she can't have children. I'm divorcing her because she can't have children, and she doesn't deserve the ksuba. They fooled me. Now, yeah, exactly. That was the Gemara in Ksubas. So now what happens is she has children, and they tell her, you should really go back to that first husband of yours and ask for a ksuba. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, what we say to her is, I think it's better for you to stay quiet than to speak up, because if you stay quiet, then we won't undermine the whole divorce. But what you're doing now, when you're speaking up and asking for a ksuba, what you're saying is that really the whole divorce was not valid. The whole premise of divorce wasn't valid. You're going to end up making your children into mamzerim. Better for you to stay quiet. What happens when she stays quiet? She can claim like this, that really he divorced me for good reason. She was an islandess. And what happened later? I don't know what happened later. That's its own, something happened. I don't know. So it's changed. Okay. That's what it seems, even though I don't really have sources like that. But Lameimra, what do you mean to say that Rabbi Yehuda chayish l'kilkula v'Rabbanan lo chayish l'kilkula? That Rabbi Yehuda has a concern over here that he should never remarry her because he's concerned that he may undermine the divorce, which is going to cause a catastrophe to the family, to the new family. The children will be mamzerim. Rabbanan lo chayish l'kilkula, and the Rabbanan say no, she could get remarried to the same husband. He can take her back, which means that he may possibly try to undermine the divorce, but the Rabbanan aren't concerned about that. But the last Mishnah said exactly the opposite. The last Mishnah said, if someone divorces his wife because of a bad name that she has, that's the Chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about him undermining the divorce. It just has to do with how serious are her vows. Alma, it's switched between one Mishnah and the next. They have exactly opposite opinions. It's inconsistent. Amar Shmuel Epach. Shmuel says, don't worry about that. Just switch the names around, and it's not a problem. Remember Rabbi Wine's story? There was a Maggid that would come to town, and he had two suitcases. One of them had papers filled with stories, and the other one had papers that had names on it. So he would put it, before he gave a speech, he put his hand into this suitcase, pulled out a story. He put his hand into this suitcase, pulled out names, which rabbi it happened to, and then he would say his whatever, random. Anyway, so what we're going to do over here is, hey, you're worried about that the names don't, it's inconsistent. Don't worry, we'll just switch those names, put the other names on it. Yeah. No, they all the stories. Depends which group you're from.
Rabbi Krohn, the storyteller, he takes these things and puts them on those stories he's been telling.
He said there was a Hasidic yeshiva. No, it was a liturgy yeshiva, but all the teachers were Hasidic. Anyway, they told the teachers that he keeps saying stories about the Baal Shem Tov and about the, the Ruzhiner and this. You have to say literature stories. Say, so he said, but they don't have like the same story. They don't have. Don't worry about it. The story that you have with Baal Shem Tov, say it happened with the Gra. Just switch the name. If it was the Ruzhiner, say it was the Chassam Sefer. So just switch the name. Anyway, everything's going well until the students come home. They say one Sunday, this Rosh Hashiva in Bnei Brak was giving out dollars. Okay. So Amar Shmuel Eipach. Shmuel says switch the name. Bamidiktani Seifa, you can't switch the name. Nisis la'acher v'hayol lebanim meimena. If she if you read further in the Mishnah, it says if she gets married and then she has married someone else, then she has children, and then she comes back to the first husband and says, I didn't realize I can now claim the ksuba. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda says you can't switch the name. Rabbi Yehuda clearly says that you should stay quiet because you're going to undermine the whole divorce. Rabbi Yehuda is the one that's concerned about that. Umar says Hanami Eipach. Switch that name too. Just take off the name Rabbi Yehuda, put in the Chachamim. Abaya Amar, who was saying this? It says Eipach, that was Shmuel. Abaya Amar, Abaya says Leilam Leit Eipach, don't switch the names. Rabbi Yehuda, Bahi Savalak Reb Meir, Savalak Reb Elazar. When it came to the vow, and you go back to the Mishnah before, he had two opinions that made it that he's not concerned about Kulkula. First of all, he held like Reb Meir. Reb Meir had an opinion that says that every person in the world knows that a husband can annul a vow that's between them. Okay. That means that he can never show up with a vow saying a vow that was between them, a vow that the husband himself can annul. He can never show up saying, had I had known, I never would have divorced. What do you mean, had I had known? Everyone knows that. Okay, so that's where Rabbi Yehuda does away with that kilkula. Savalak Reb Meir. Savalak Reb Elazar, and he also holds like Reb Elazar. Reb Elazar said that a man does not want his wife to go to the front of the Chacham because that's embarrassing for him and for her. He doesn't want her to do that. So therefore, he cannot show up now saying that had I had known that she could have annulled the vow, I would have had her annul the vow. You can't do that because you wouldn't have wanted her to annul the vow anyway. You would have rather to get divorced. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah by Nedarim was not concerned about undermining the divorce. It goes like this. B'tzarech, the vows that require a chacham, savalak Rabbi Elazar, he holds like Rabbi Elazar. She'ein tzarech, vows that don't require a chacham, that a husband himself can annul, savalak Rabbi Meir, holds like Rabbi Meir, that he can't show up later saying, had I had known. Amar Rava. Rava says, Tabaya says to Rabbi Yehuda, ad Rabbi the Kasha, the Rabbanan like Kasha. He resolved Rabbi Yehuda's view, but they have a contradiction with the sages. The same contradiction that you have with Rabbi Yehuda, the inconsistency you also have on the sages. Before the sages said that we're concerned about Kulkula, about the catastrophe happening, and over here they're not concerned. You answered correctly, Rabbi Yehuda, that he holds those two opinions about the vows. The Rabbanan like Kasha, and there's no question on the sages because Man Chachamim, who are the sages? Reb Meir. The opinion of Reb Meir, Damar Bin Tzanai Kafel, that says that in order to undermine a divorce, you would need to have placed on the divorce a double stipulation. That if this is so, then this is what happens. And if it's not so, then it's not what happens. He didn't say that the reason why I'm divorcing you is because of this, and if this is not so, then I'm not divorcing. He didn't double it. He only made this. He only said I'm divorcing you because of this. So since he holds like Reb Meir, so it's never going to undermine the original divorce because he didn't do that double expression. Okay, someone sells himself as a slave to a non-Jew. I say. According to the Chachamim, he would be allowed to remarry her. By the islanders, he would be allowed to remarry her. And that's why, and the reason why he's allowed to is because they didn't have the double stipulation. No, because he doesn't have the double stipulation, so he can't undermine the divorce. The only way he'd be undermine the divorce is if the stipulation was doubled, had both the net positive and the negative.
You might, or you can't get divorced, so you don't necessarily, you can't remarry again. You gotta get divorced.
Yeah, when would he not be allowed to remarry her if we had a concern that he may undermine the divorce later on? But because he can't undermine the divorce, so we're not concerned that we allow him to get remarried. The not getting remarried would be a way of preventing him undermining the original divorce. We have to tell him, you should know that you're never going to be able to remarry this, and therefore forget your stipulations. Someone sells himself to a non-Jew as a slave. I say we don't run in like saviors and say and redeem him. But if he sells himself and his children, then we do come in and save the children. Amar Ravasi in the Gemara says it's actually not accurate. The first time we do come in and save it. The second time we come in and save it. It's the third time that we don't come in and save him. My wife's family, they had this lady that would come around always asking for money. They realized she had a drug problem, but she would keep asking for money. Anyway, after a while, she disappears for a few years. She calls up. She says, "Oh, good news! I'm getting married. I'm getting married. I found someone. I'm getting married, and I need money for a sheitel." Sounds like is the man Jewish? No, not Jewish. She still needs money for a sheitel. Anyway, it's like, they just show up with requests. Anyway, here's a guy that he sells himself to non-Jews. He shows up in the frum community saying, "You don't want me to be by the non-Jews, do you? So pay for my ransom." So the community pays the first time, the second time, but the third time we say enough is enough. You can't keep pulling this trick. So Hanu b'nei Bei Michsi, the people from this Bei Michsi. They borrowed money from non-Jews. They didn't have money to pay it back. So so they went and they basically taken as captives. They come to Rav Huna, what do you want me? What do you want me to do? I said, we don't redeem you. You borrowed money from them. Now you're in trouble. That don't come to us. Amalei Rababa says, but limadatani Rabbeinu, but our teacher taught us. It's only if it's the 3 times, if you did it 3 times. Amalei said, Hani Margli Regili Davdi Hachi. These fellas do this all the time. Okay. The Hugavra, there was a person who's he sold himself to cannibals. No, it's a slight mistake. So Asla Kami the Rabami comes in front of Rabami, Amalei, he says, Pirkan, help me, ransom me. Amalei. Amalei, he says, it was a milcha katami hawk when the Indian went out to get the Amalei, he said, Tanan, the Mishnah says, you can't ransom them, but you can ransom the children, because you don't, mishum kulkul over here means that you don't want the children growing up without any Torah in their lives. So their children we will ransom. Over here it's even worse. It's not that they won't grow up; they'll grow up without an education. Over here, the problem is they'll grow up without growing. They'll never grow up. They're gonna get eaten, right? It's a little problem. Amalei Rabbanan leRabami. Rabbanan said to Rabami, "Hay Yisrael mumaru the kachazalei the kachal nevelas the trefus." Before you put out all the money, I just want you to know that this guy is not so kosher. He eats non-kosher food. Amalahu. So Rabami says to them, "Emalati the kachal." How do you know he's a bad guy? Maybe he's has the Yetzer Hara. He couldn't control himself. We're not going to not save him just because he one time made treif. Amrlei vazim nindikatera the isura kamei v'shavikater v'chalisura. But it's not true. Sometimes he could have, there were two restaurants right next to each other. He went dafka to the treifa one. Amalei Zil, he says, go, I'm sorry. Like Shafkali Dafkinach, they're not letting me ransom you. Rish Lakish Zavin Nafshaludai, help me out with this story, follow along, because I'm sure if I have it perfect. Rish Lakish sold himself to these cannibals. Shakal Bade. Oh, they have gladiators. Okay.
I'll show you a picture of that.
Well, he was glad.
Oh. Wow.
That makes sense. Gladiator as a cannibal.
I don't know.
Makes sense for Rich.
Where did I get Luda? I had Rashi says that it's a nation that eats people. So okay, whatever the case is, he may have like a Greek word or something. Shakal ba'adei chaisa v'galgalta. He takes with him so Rish Lakish is selling himself to these people. Takes with him a little sack plus a rock inside it. That's what it sounds like. So there's lead. Omar, he says, Gemiri, I've been taught Yom Basra on the last day before they eat them, called the boy min Abdullah. Anything that you ask from them, they do. So that they should be atoned for the spilling of blood. Yom Basra, it was the last day. Amalei, my nichalach, what would you like? Amalahu, he says, Bina akmatinu va'isvinaichu. I want to tie you guys up. I want to sit you down. I want to give each of you a slap and a half. Well, continue. They tied them up. They sat them down. When he gave them one slap, what happened was he was hitting them with the sack that he had. And inside the sack was the rock. They thought they were going to get hit with an empty sack. There was a hidden rock inside. So nafak nishmase, their souls are going out. Charkino lashine. What is charkino lashine? They're showing their teeth. They're gritting their teeth. Or Rish Lakish is. Rish Lakish gritted his teeth. Amalei. They said to him, you're laughing at us. Akati pashlach gabe palga dechaisa. You still have another half a slap left. Katlino kulu. He killed them all. Nafik v'asa. He came back. He said, Yosef v'kachol v'shasi. He was sitting. He was eating and drinking. Amalei brate. His daughter says, "Leibayis midi lemazkala. Do you need a pillow or a cushion to sit on?" Amalei biti crazy curry. My stomach is my pillow. I guess he was like so happy that he survived. That's what it sounds like. Hinach nafshe, when he passed away, shavakabed marika, he left over a measurement of saffron. And Kara nafshe, he says about himself, va'azvu la'achirim chelam. He left for others his strength. Now, how do they comment on that? What does it mean he left for others his strength? He left because saffron was very expensive? What does it mean?
He did not use all of it properly.
Oh, even though he had so little left, he wanted to enjoy everything and not leave anything over. Interesting. Okay, let's leave it over here.
It's funny because they used to have all these movies with Charles Bronson, right? And in each one, the way he
Dr. Stein once told one of his